Are you looking for some great fantasy books to read? You're in the right place. This is the start of my top 100 of all time fantasy books that I've read, 81 to 100 today. Hi there, I'm Jim with Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, other nerdy things we enjoy. Today, starting my 2024 edition of the top 100 books in fantasy that I've enjoyed. This was not an easy list to make. I've read a lot of fantasy books. I considered every last one. I went through them again, pondered them, ranked them, shifted them around, agonized at excellent books that got kicked off the list by more excellent books. And the list is flavored by just my own personality. So you're going to get a little bit about who I am as you get to see what makes my top 100. I think I'll update the list every year now that I took the time to do it, because it will change. There are some books on here from a long time ago, but there are others that are very recent. So, new books that I read, they're going to push off some of the others, no doubt. But I want to share with you what I have here. This will be an episode that will recur over 5 periods because I'm not going to drop 100 books on you all at once. Today, numbers 100 all the way up to 81. Come back tomorrow for the next 20. But let's not waste any more time. What books have I read that I deem worthy enough to be this high? Starting at the bottom, number 100 is a throwback to 1977, The Source of Magic by Piers Anthony. This is book 2 in his Xanth series. Just a crazy, kooky, pun-based fantasy tale. This is the only Xanth book on here. I'll just let you know that now. I didn't put book 1 on. Book 1 was fine, but book 2 was better. Not all the books are better in the series, but there's some nostalgia here for me. The Source of Magic, number 100. Number 99 is The Sleeping Dragon, book 1 of Joel Rosenberg's Guardians of the Flame series from 1983. I enjoy this entire series, although there are later books in the series I've yet to read, but this is where it starts, and it was so good. What an experience reading this one. College kids suddenly in a D&D world out of nowhere, and wow, figuring out what to do and how to survive, and this isn't a game anymore. Number 98, Needful Things by Stephen King, 1991. This is a good example of when I try to think of fantasy, there are some crossover things that make my list because they're that good. Needful Things is definitely fantastical. It's also somewhat dark and a little horrific, but I think it leans more into the fantasy than some of Stephen King's works. And it's really, really good. It says a lot about the human condition. It's also just freaky. That was 98. 97. Wizard's First Rule, book 1 of Terry Goodkind's Sword of Truth series from 1994. I've read most of the Sword of Truth and certainly all of the primary narrative. And this first book, it introduced a world of a fantasy experience, certain characters that were quite good. I definitely enjoyed reading Wizard's First Rule. I don't have any more of the Sword of Truth series on here. There's a couple other books that are definitely quite good. The series starts to tail off before you get too far into it. But I enjoyed book 1 for sure, and that's why I kept reading the series. So it's worth being on my top 100. Number 96, A Dance with Dragons, the 5th book in George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, written in 2011. The 5th book. The final book right now. We need more, George. Come on. But this early grimdark style fantasy delivers. And with its cliffhanger at the end, it hangs here in my top 100. Number 95, Academ's Fury, Jim Butcher's Codex Alera Book 2, written in 2005. Jim Butcher, of course, wrote one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, The Dresden Files. That's urban fantasy. This was him showing off, saying, hey, I can do epic fantasy too. Academ's Fury is a great place to enjoy all that Butcher can bring with his style. It's book 2 of the series. Book 1, not quite good enough to make the top 100, though I definitely enjoyed it. But book 2 is a step up. Number 94, Prince of Thorns, book 1 in Mark Lawrence's The Broken Empire series. This was my introduction to Mark Lawrence, his 2011 publication. Quite grimdark. Jorg Ankrath is a nasty character who just has a little charisma and sucks you in. Prince of Thorns is not for everybody. It was for me, and it makes the top 100. Number 93, Cursor's Fury, book 3 of Jim Butcher's Codex Alera. This one coming out in 2006. Just advancing the story more. When a story is good, sometimes more books will make it on this list. I liked the Codex Alera. Number 92, we're jumping back to 1984 with Dragons of Autumn Twilight. Dragonlance Chronicles, book 1 by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. This was Dungeons and Dragons coming to life on the page, and I really enjoyed it. It's where the whole story starts. There's no more Dragonlance on my list. There's a lot of nostalgia baked into them because this is where it started. This is a fave. I will admit I considered the next trilogy about the twins, but they're not quite up there for me to make the 100, but they're also really good. Number 91 is Anthrax from the Shannara books by Terry Brooks. This is the 13th in the series, and it's from the section of books, The Voyage of the Jurl Shannara. This came out in 2001. There's over 30 books in this series. Quite a few of them I really enjoy. This is just one. I'm looking through the list. I'm like, I'm going to pull this one out and put it on the list. And I put all my books on this list somewhere, and then they shuffle around. When it all was done and the dust cleared, this one was still on the top 100. So there you go. There's something about a character called Walker Bow who really connects for me and gave me some elements of the plot that I was like, wow, memorable, stuck with me, makes the 100. Okay, let's move to the next 10. So number 90 is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the 4th book in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, published in 2000. I know, it's kind of like YA. Well, there wasn't really a YA when this came out. This was just a big honkin' fantasy book that I enjoyed, and I read it to the family. It's a great story. The series gets darker here, seriously darker with this book. It's got more gravitas to it. It takes us to a new level in the Harry Potter series, and it's here on the top 100. Number 89 is a return to the series, A Song of Ice and Fire. Book 5 is already on this list farther down, but here's book 2, A Clash of Kings, published in 1998. There were things happening in this series that I'd not seen before in fantasy fiction. Nobody's safe here. People die. And just gripping politics and manipulation and backstabbing and wow. And if you're a small person, sorry. So A Clash of Kings, 89. Number 88, a granddaddy of fantasy, a classic that holds a place in my heart. I've read this so many times. The Fellowship of the Ring, book 1 of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, published in 1954. I mean, there's nothing I have to say about The Fellowship of the Ring. It's such a wonderful narrative, such a rich story, amazing world building, old style. Not as many people will enjoy it anymore, but I've enjoyed it many times. Number 87 is the next book in that trilogy, The Two Towers, also being released in 1954. Also an amazing story. The stakes have gotten higher. The battle scenes, oh my goodness. Love The Two Towers. Number 86 is the first book of Anne McCaffrey's The Dragon Riders of Pern to hang on to the 100. I tried to put them all on. Not all of them are good enough, but The Dolphins of Pern, book 12, it had staying power. Published in 1994, there is a charm, a joy about dolphins. The dolphins in this world of Pern. So, The Dolphins of Pern, here you go. Number 85 is book 14 from the Dragon Riders of Pern, The Master Harper of Pern, published in 1998. Master Harper Robinson. He's a special character. This book focuses on backstory of his and learning some things from the story of Pern that just, oh, that makes sense now. A lot of fun to read. Number 84, we're going back to Terry Brooks' Shannara books, and this time I'm bringing book 2, The Elf Stones of Shannara, which was published in 1982. For me, this is really where the Shannara books start. I mean, book 1, The Sword of Shannara, is necessary, but it's not a very strong book. This one is a strong book and establishes things that impact the rest of the 30 plus books. It's also a little heartbreaking. It gets you. The Elf Stones of Shannara, solid. Number 83 is one of my crossover books where it's fantastical. It's also got some other drama and horror and ugh, stuff, but so good. What book? Interview with the Vampire. The Vampire Chronicles, book 1 by Anne Rice. This style is verbose. Anne Rice uses a lot of words. Not everybody can handle her writing, but this book is so good. Such a twist to the vampire story. Such rich historical context that's tied in here. Such heart-ripping moments and heart's blood enjoying moments. It's gone on to spawn numerous other media, but this book, 1976, fantastic story, and makes number 83 for me. Number 82, also a throwback story from 1977. I'm putting Lord Fowl's Bane, book 1 of the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, the Unbeliever by Stephen R. Donaldson. Zach tried to read this book, felt it was too old, didn't stand up anymore. I don't care. It's a fantastically written fantasy novel. Stephen R. Donaldson showing his authorial chops. I'm fascinated by the world that he's created and that Thomas Covenant just wants to reject and yet can't help interacting with. An amazing experience, a powerful narrative, number 82. And for the final book I'm sharing on my top 100 today, number 81 is the first book from the Dresden Files that's going to make my list. Not all of them do, people, but this is number 11 in the series, Turncoat, published in 2009. There are currently 17 books in the Dresden Files, so we get all the way up to number 11 before one of them hangs on to my top 100. A great story of a character who you've loved to hate, and then things get reversed, and now you kind of like, but you still kind of hate. And Harry Dresden just stuck in the middle of trying to do the right thing and playing multiple sides of a fence and figuring out a mystery and the whole story of the Dresden Files amping up a whole nother level. I love that series. So there you go, my 81 to 100. Leave your thoughts on these books in the comments below and come back tomorrow to see what I have the next 20 going up. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.